Raise your hand, please, if you're going to Sunday school today. Raise them high, raise them proud. Love to see those hands. Today, after you go to Sunday school, following the cross and the torches, the adults are going to be reading a story about Jonah. Have you heard of Jonah? You might have heard of the whale or the big fish that swallowed him up. Well, the story of Jonah is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. God came to Jonah and said, I want you to go to Nineveh, and I want you to preach to them. And Nineveh is in present-day Iraq right now. And Jonah said, no way, God, I don't want to. And so he went all the way on the other side of the world. He tried to run away from God. But unfortunately, you can't run away from God. You can't hide. It's impossible. And God found him. And he was going on a boat all the way to the other side of the world. But God had a storm and brought that storm upon the boat. And the sailors were really afraid, and they said, get rid of this guy, he's a curse. And so they throw Jonah off of the boat, and a big fish saves Jonah's life so he doesn't drown. And he's inside that fish for 3 days and 3 nights, and he's praying, Lord, protect me. And oh, God's got something in store for him. The fish vomits Jonah onto the beach of Nineveh, of the city, the very city that he was running away from. And God came to Jonah a second time and said, go to Nineveh and preach to them. He's like, okay, all right. And Nineveh was a huge city. It took 3 days to walk from one side of Nineveh to the other. 3 whole days. As long as he was in that fish. And so Jonah's like, okay, he goes into the center of Nineveh. He's like, repent, or the whole city's going to be destroyed. That's all he says. One sentence. And then the whole city repents. The whole city repents. The whole city puts on sackcloth, which means that they're sorry. They're sorry for what they've done. You see, Nineveh was an enemy to Jonah's people. They had conquered Jonah's people. They'd killed a lot of people. They'd hurt a lot of people. They were the so-called bad guys. But guess what? These bad guys, they were sorry. They wanted to change. And so they put sackcloth, this is really scratchy cloth, and they put it on themselves. And they were so sorry, they actually put it on every single one of their cows, too, to show how sorry they were. And Jonah, oh my gosh, he was really upset. He was really upset. He didn't want this to happen. Because these were the bad guys. These were the Ninevites. These Iraqis don't deserve God's love, he thought. And so he went up on a mountain where he could see Nineveh, the whole city. And he went up there and he just pouted. He just sat down. And, this is awful. And God had something else to show him. He instantaneously grew this plant that came above Jonah and covered the sun from his head so that he didn't get sunburned. He said, hey, God, this plant is awesome. I love this. I'm feeling pretty good. But then, oh my gosh, God sent a worm, and the plant shriveled up so that the sun was beating down on his head. He said, God, what do you do with that plant? What's the deal? He says, aha! God says, aha! I gotcha. You like the plant that I made? Well, what about the Ninevites that I made too? What about them and all those cattle? And that's where the story ends. So, that's where it ends. So let's sit on that story. Think about how perhaps we want to go in God's direction rather than run. Because God will show us some things we might not be pleased with, but they're beautiful things. Beautiful, stunning, mysterious things. Let's see. Let us go forth in the name of Christ.